Yeah,
down the road.
Bye, because you're not going to come back here again.
It was a typical summer day in Florida, but by nightfall, an entire community would be reeling from a tragedy so incomprehensible, it left seasoned detectives in tears and a sheriff too angry for restraint.
That this father is a human piece of garbage, and he's a lying sack of shit. His son, Sebastian, sits there and says, "Dad, why did you do this to me?"
June, sweltering, humid, the kind of heat that clings to your skin and seeps into your bones. In Volusia County, 33-year-old Scott Gardner made a series of choices that would end with his 18-month-old son, Sebastian.
Oh my gosh! Hurry, Brian!
Please, oh my God! You're my son!
And not before you want to. You guys back rolling over here?
Hurry!
Emergency.
A bright-eyed toddler still learning to say "Dada," dying inside a baking hot pickup truck. This is the story of a death that didn't have to happen.
Because there is no reason for this little boy to be dead.
A crime of negligence so profound it pierced even the hardest hearts in law enforcement. And a question that lingers long after the sirens fade. How could any parent forget the child they swore to protect? It all began around noon. Scott Gardner buckled his son into a rear-facing car seat. The kind toddlers ride in before they can even understand what a seatbelt is for. Then, according to police, Gardner didn't head to daycare, or the grocery store, or home. He went to get a haircut, and then he went drinking. Surveillance, witness statements, and bar tabs would later confirm. Scott Gardner parked his truck.
So, Hanky Panky's Lounge, where he gets his haircut. What he does is he pulls in here, leaves the baby in the car, 11:30 a.m., he gets his haircut. He then parks his car with Sebastian in it when he gets his haircut. They then park over here. Sebastian's in the back of the car seat faces the rear window of the car, where he then enters Hanky Panky's Lounge around noon. So you figure the baby's been in the car the ride over. Now, half hour later, after the haircut, baby's still in the car. He decides he's going to go into Hanky Panky's to have a cocktail. He's there from noon to 2:40. So for 2 hours and 40 minutes, that little guy is inside that car.
Left Sebastian inside, windows cracked, a battery-powered fan running, and walked away. For nearly 3 hours.
With a little mini fan with AA batteries in it blowing on the baby.
Sheriff Michael Chitwood didn't mince words. Standing before press cameras, he scowled. This father is a human piece of garbage, and he's exactly where he belongs to be.
That this father is a human piece of garbage, and he's a lying sack of shit. And he's exactly where he belongs to be.
Investigators say the timeline is damning. Noon to 2:40 p.m., a period where Florida's heat index soared past 100 degrees. Inside that truck, with the engine off and AC silent, the temperature shot up like a furnace. Medical examiners later reported Sebastian's body temperature reached 111 degrees Fahrenheit. By the time Gardner stumbled back to his vehicle, it was already too late, but what he did next was even more disturbing. He didn't call 911. He didn't rush to a hospital. He didn't scream for help. Instead, he drove, with his dead child in the back seat, to his mother's house. Only then, over an hour later, did a panicked 911 call come in.
My son's not breathing. He's a year and a half.
Okay,
Sebastian!
Okay, how old is he?
A year and a half.
Okay, is he breathing?
No.
You don't see any chest rising or falling?
Mom!
Bodycam footage from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office shows Gardner, shirtless and disheveled, trying to explain himself.
He's on the floor, man. He's not eating yogurt. He's been fine.
Oh my gosh! Hurry, Brian!
His story changes. First, he says it was only 30 minutes. Then, he blames memory loss. Then he claims he cracked the windows. But detectives had already spoken to witnesses, seen the footage, smelled the beer. They weren't buying it. He had some beers. He had a couple shots of Fireball, Chitwood explained. Then he comes out of the bar, and that little guy was gone. It should have ended there, with a father grieving, a community mourning, and a child being laid to rest. But Gardner made one more devastating decision. The same place where, just hours earlier, his son had died alone, suffocating under the brutal Florida sun.
He picks up his mother and they go back to Hanky Panky's for a few more cocktails, and they're there until almost midnight.
They were there until almost midnight, Chitwood said, shaking his head, sipping cocktails, laughing, like nothing had happened. Gardner was charged with aggravated manslaughter of a child and child neglect, both first-degree felonies in Florida, carrying possible sentences of up to 30 years each. But prosecutors weren't done. Legal analysts suggest the state may push for a grand jury indictment for felony murder. Under Florida law, if a child dies during the commission of an aggravated felony, like child abuse, the death can qualify as first-degree murder. Intent isn't even required. This wasn't a tragic accident, criminal defense attorney Kathleen Bowen Schutz explained. This was willful negligence, and the most damning piece of evidence, that fan. Because the moment Gardner turned that fan on, he acknowledged the danger. It shows he knew it was hot, Bowen Schutz continued. It shows he knew his child was inside. You don't crack the windows and put on a fan unless you're trying to keep someone cool. And that strips away the only defense that might have saved him. The defense many parents tragically use in hot car deaths. I forgot. Because forgetting isn't the same as abandoning. I've prosecuted these cases, Bowen Schutz added, and in most of them, it's a horrific, genuine mistake. A parent deviates from routine, leaves a sleeping child in the back seat. No malice, just heartbreak. This isn't that. Indeed, studies show hot car deaths are usually caused by routine disruption, a parent in autopilot, thinking the child was already dropped off. But this was a man who knowingly left his son behind, drank whiskey, and socialized, while his baby slowly cooked to death in a 120-degree metal box. The autopsy revealed more than just a fatal body temperature. Sebastian had blistered skin, severe dehydration, evidence of prolonged heat exposure.
The highest temperature in that car was 111 degrees with that little guy in the back of that car seat.
And one haunting truth. He likely cried, he likely screamed, until he didn't. Sebastian's family set up a GoFundMe for his burial. The message read, "Sebastian's spirit and bright light will forever remain in the hearts of all who knew him and loved him." The sheriff had his own message, this one for Gardner. "My hope for him is every night when he closes his eyes and every morning when he opens them, Sebastian is there, saying, 'Dad, why did you do this to me?'" In Florida, cases like these stir visceral reactions. The state has long battled awareness campaigns, warning parents about the dangers of leaving children in cars. Not even for a minute, the signs say. But every summer, the stories return. Cars become ovens. Infants become victims. And the public, left asking, how does this still happen? Experts say body temperature in a child can rise 3 to 5 times faster than in an adult. A child strapped into a padded rear-facing seat can't escape, can't move, can't cry for long. By the time someone notices, it's usually too late. Gardner's trial hasn't yet begun. Prosecutors are expected to present surveillance, bar receipts, 911 audio, and damning body cam video. Jurors, most of them Florida natives, will hear about cracked windows, fireball shots, and a fan that hummed while a baby died. Could Gardner plead out? Possibly. But after his behavior, drinking after death, misleading police, showing no visible remorse, few expect leniency. "You can drink as a parent," Bowen Schutz said. "You can go to a bar, but you cannot leave your baby in a car while you do it, and you cannot pretend you didn't know." And so, the image remains. A toddler, small and trusting, strapped in the back of a truck, waiting. His father inside a bar, laughing, taking shots, never looking back. In the end, this story is not just about crime. It's about carelessness, a selfish act masquerading as forgetfulness, a life snuffed out before it even had a chance to begin. The courtroom will decide Scott Gardner's fate, but for Sebastian, the sentence was already served. He died alone, in silence, in heat. And for those of us left to witness this heartbreak from afar, there's only one conclusion that settles in our chests like ice. Sometimes, the people we trust to love us the most are the ones who fail us in the cruelest ways imaginable.